This is baby Indiana Jones.
This is English Indiana Jones.
I would say baby.
Man, he's in his 20s.
Yeah, but look how young he looks.
He's also animated.
Oh, that's right. No, I think this Adventures of Tintin is...
This was a movie that was way overlooked, in my opinion.
Well, which is funny, because I told you, I was like, it made a decent amount in
They
theaters.
also spent a ton of money making
Well, yeah. But I still thought it was, for what it was really good. The reason I do say it's like baby Indiana Jones was this movie was clearly more for kids. Along with it being animated, you do deal with
it's
some...
no more for kids than Indiana Jones was.
Really? I would say this is a little bit more for kids. I mean, you have like the
Outside
dog,
of it being
and
animated.
then it's also a little bit more humor in it. It's more cartoonish because it is a cartoon.
Dr. Jones.
Well, the second, but think about the dark elements that the second one has.
Yeah.
Of Indiana Jones. Besides the point, I think this was it was a very entertaining movie, and when I say it's baby Indiana Jones, I don't mean it as a slight towards Tintin.
Yeah.
Because this is a genre, we've discussed this before, the action-adventure genre, specifically like treasure hunting,
it's fun.
it's always fun.
Yeah.
Even if it's done
fun.
kind of poorly, it's still fun. And when it's done well, like in The Adventures of Tintin, it's really fun.
This is really good. I remember when this came out, and I didn't see it in theaters, and I remember seeing when I saw it when it came out.
Oh, so you saw it in theaters?
I didn't see it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I didn't see it in theaters. And I don't know why I didn't see this in theaters.
I think... Because I recall I remember going to theaters and this being in theaters but not seeing it.
And
so there must have been something else out.
I don't remember. But all I know is when I did see this, thinking, why did nobody go, like, what?
Well, yeah.
Why was this not a bigger deal than it was? Because it's really fun.
Yeah.
It's good. I mean, they put together a solid, of course these are based on...
Yeah, it's like comic strips by Hervé.
Yeah.
It's Tintin. I mean, that's what he is. But I like the character of Tintin. He's naturally like inquisitive. He's always
curious.
He's super curious. Like instead, when that guy walked up, he's like, "I'll pay you." What was it, like $50 for that ship that he had just paid $2 for? Mm-hmm. Normal person would be like, "Yeah, okay." But Tintin was like, "Why is this ship worth this much?"
Well, yeah.
Like
of course. That's a rule for anybody.
So you think we should from now on, even if it leads us on a course of action like happens here, okay, that's cool. Just making sure.
Well, anytime you have something that you don't think is anything and somebody offers you a ton of money for it, you gotta go,
why?
No. Well, yes, why? But you still don't sell it. You go home, you do your research, and you find out how much it's actually worth.
But it goes back to, I do like the character of Tintin.
$50 ain't bad.
It's still one of my favorite Toy Story Tintin. It's awesome. The character though, he's super fun because of that. Like he's constantly trying to figure out things, and he basically inadvertently is put on this massive adventure that he could have easily avoided, but it makes for a fun movie, and you buy it because that's just how the character is.
Yeah, and he. Being a journalist, an investigative journalist, that's, it falls to his job. Like, he's got a job that fits his nature. It's a beautiful movie, too. It looks really good.
Well, it is, it is Spielberg. And Spielberg, I told you this,
Spielberg and Peter Jackson.
Well, Peter Jackson produced it, and he was, heavily involved. But this was a movie, I told you, I thought the only reason he did do it in CGI was it was almost like a way for him... Along with experimenting, I also think it was he wanted to accomplish certain shots or transitions that he normally couldn't do with a real movie. Like that whole chase sequence where it's the opera singer has broken the glass and they're going through that whole city in Morocco. That is I'm pretty sure it's it looks like one take.
Yeah.
So it's he could have never done that in real life, but when it's motion capture, he was able to do it. Yeah. And because of that, it makes a really cool, effective scene.
When you watch it and you're like, this is crazy.
This is cool, yeah. You're like, this is nuts. Another thing I told you was the transition where the boats are at sea, and you see the boats, and then all of a sudden you see a foot come down and it steps in a puddle.
Yeah.
And you're like,
there are several moments.
And then
throughout
kind
the
of
movie.
Cool.
Yeah. There's one where it's like a bubble pops, and but within the bubble there was another scene, and
yeah. No, that's what Steven Spielberg for a reason. You know, he knows how to make a really good film, and he's not just I wouldn't say he's like James Cameron, where he's just making entertaining films. For me, Spielberg, there's kind of an art behind. He is a true artist, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He's just, because he's made so many popular movies, he's kind of looked over in that sense. On
top of that, with the way Tintin gets drug into it, you are too, and you become heavily invested in what's trying to, not necessarily, you're heavily invested in trying to figure out what's going on.
Well, and that's writing, and I know Joe Cornish, who was kind of a writing partner of Edgar Wright person. He was heavily involved, and so they had some decent writers in it, and I know Simon Pegg and Nick Frost were in it as those two. They were constables, is what they were called. They were detectives, kind of.
They worked for the
Scotland Yard.
Yeah,
and
there's a name for it.
It's the Scotland Yard, isn't it?
Yeah, that's not what they were called. Oh. That's not.
But I want to say, I'm not positive on this, but I think Simon Pegg, may have been involved in writing it too. I think, but it goes to what you said. They did a very effective job. That from minute 4, you're all of a sudden just into this story about okay, so what's happening here, and it just,
they don't really go in. There's no really backstory or anything.
No, it's just you all of a sudden are just as curious as Tintin is.
Yeah, and your knowledge of Tintin is basically what you see in his apartment.
Mm-hmm. Is that he's an award-winning investigative journalist. He's a collector of
antiquities, kind of
things.
He's got a dog.
Oh, and his puppy dog. Yeah. Who's incredibly smart.
And then and that's pretty much it. The rest of the story centers around what he's investigating, essentially.
Yeah. And you meet these colorful cast of characters, which include Daniel Craig as the villain, and he does a good job. I mean, Daniel Craig's someone that, especially with roles that he's done recently, it's man, he is a pretty kind of diverse actor. He's not just Bond. He's not just the pretty face that some people think of him as. But he was pretty good as the villain. But
Andy Serkis.
The standout, I would have to say, is Andy Serkis, and
yeah, he very much is.
And it's because he's constantly drunk, and because he's Andy Serkis and he's so good at motion capture and body movement. Mm-hmm. His body language is incredible in this movie. And that was a fascinating, especially because I would still consider this a kid's movie. This is the most adult theme of the movie, which is Andy Serkis' character is
part of the reason
you didn't think it was a kid. Andy Serkis' character is a heavy alcoholic, and it's dealing with him sobering up.
It's definitely for kids, but in my opinion, of course, I've been watching Indiana Jones since I was a year or two old.
I was about to say. So you would consider those?
I ran those VHS tapes dry.
Yeah.
There is no.
Were they wet?
Well, I just mean you plug them in, you're just gonna see static.
Yeah, I know. I know.
But again, it's just a nostalgia feel.
I like the time period too, because it's supposed to be 40s, maybe 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I agree. I do agree with you on that. It feels like an Indiana Jones movie with just different characters.
Yeah. And
because of that, I'm on board for it. And this is a movie where I do agree it must have been overlooked, because it leads off for there's going to be more Adventures of Tintin.
Well, the reason the difference between Indiana Jones and this, and Indiana Jones, he's chasing something mystical. There's magic. There's in this
it's just treasure. But that's more realistic, which is funny because this is an animated movie. You would think certain animated movies would deal with something that's mystical that you can't film or show. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, this is actually relatively a pretty grounded movie.
Yeah.
That could have easily been live action.
And it sets it up for a sequel. And I do hope that sometime in the next
But like Jamie Bell played Tintin, and at the time I think we looked it up and he was like
early 20s.
Yeah, I thought he was like mid-20s, which
okay.
But it's like
I mean,
but then you're gonna say him playing like a 20-year-old at the age of 40?
It's not like his voice is gonna change.
Yeah,
it's not like he's 60 and
well,
like,
yeah, well,
70, 80 and like he's. I don't think Jamie Bell's a heavy smoker. I don't think that
we don't know that.
But no, I mean, you see Jamie Bell and stuff now. He sounds exactly the same.
I will give you that. That's fair, but I still. It's like if they're gonna do it, they need to try and jump on that. And from my understanding, is that Spielberg
Jackson has the idea for 3.
The plan was that they were going to make 3, and almost like back to back to back, which was Spielberg directed the first one and Peter Jackson producing, and then Peter Jackson was going to do 2 and 3.
Yeah,
and this just never happened. And I'm assuming it's because, like you said, it kind of underperformed in the box office. It still made a decent amount of money, but probably not as much as they were hoping to create a franchise, which. It's a shame because it's
everybody needs to hop on Netflix right now.
And maybe if we can get enough people watching it at one time, they're like, we need to do this. Because I think it's a super fun movie, for the whole family, but it's like
I watched it and immediately wanted. I've seen this movie 3 times now.
I've seen it 4,
and
you can pop it on anytime.
Yeah, and after this last time, I wanted to watch it immediately. Like I was like. Let's do it again.
Yeah, and it's
and if there was
it has that Spielberg element of like, man, this is just fun.
Yeah,
like it for me, it makes me Spielberg is
he makes magical movies.
He's one of the few directors that I can watch one of his movies, depending on the movie, of course. I don't get this feeling with Schindler's List, but depending on the movie, I'll watch it and I feel like a kid.
Yeah.
And Tintin is no different for this.
That
feeling.
I mean, there's this. There's the Indiana Jones movies.
There's E.T.
There's
E.T.,
Jurassic Park. I'd go as far as Jaws.
Yeah,
and even Close Encounters. I'd even say that too.
Less so in Close Encounters, but I do agree with Jaws. But he just affected. I
feel kind of like giddy.
Yeah, like I feel like a kid, and for me, like I just said, Tintin is no different.
This has that. Spielberg
and I do wish they had made a second one,
because this one ends and you immediately go because it ends, but
it literally is like we're going on for more adventures,
and you're like
hell yes, and then you realize we're watching this in 2020 and that came out in 2011.
Yeah,
it's like damn it, it's really frustrating. I personally, I would give this like a B teetering on B+ for me.
Oh,
it's a super fun movie, but I'm also not. I don't think it's absolutely amazing.
It's an A-.
Okay.
It's an A- teeter on an A for me. I love this movie.
Oh no, I know, because the whole time you were watching, like, man, fucking Tintin, man, like you were in it.
This is great. And on top of that, like, I guess because it's the way it's animated, part of me too is like. It's got like that Uncharted feel a little bit too.
I will give you that. When they're in Morocco, I was like, this feels straight out of Uncharted.
Yeah.
I think this is one that, once again, you're quarantined. Just
this is an easy, fun watch.
Yeah. And it's like, I think it's like hour 40, maybe a little bit longer, but it flies by.
Yeah.
Because it's like the story is moving at such a, I wouldn't say frenetic, like it's not all over the place, but
it doesn't stop.
It does. Once it gets going, it's going, and it immediately starts. So it's like you're just along for this ride, and and
you keep thinking it's gonna stop, and then the way it ends, you're just like,
why is it stopping?
Yeah, we're not done yet.
It's like easy, but yeah, I think
we have more to do here,
and apparently they didn't, which. Like you keep what's
Peter
sad
Jackson,
because
they still got the rights.
It's like every couple years, some interviewer will ask them like, "So what's going on? What's going on with Tintin?" And Spielberg and Peter Jackson are like, "Oh, we're not done. Yeah. We're not done with it." But then they're they're not working on it. They're like, they'll say like, we need to get a script or we need to get a good script, and it's like,
well, my hope, it did take them 35 years to make a new Top Gun.
So
we have some time.
2045.
We've got some time.
We'll get a tint. We'll be what? Like,
I don't know. Maybe Tom Cruise will let him borrow Mike's magic stuff.
We'll be like 50 and like, yes, Tintin. So happy.
Is that how we're going to talk when we're 50?
Oh, we don't know what the coronavirus is doing, man. But yeah, that was our take on the Adventures of Tintin.
And this is easily one of my favorite movies on Netflix right now.
Yeah, and it's on Netflix, by the way. Mm-hmm. So you can if I'm assuming you have it, you should watch it. Yeah. And so we will catch you next time. We'll see you.